The alien warship moved slowly through the empty darkness between galaxies. It was a massive vessel, black and cold, carrying its cargo of human prisoners toward the slave markets far away. The ship was called the Eternal Silence, and it had been capturing humans for many years. Deep inside the ship, in a small, dirty cell, a woman sat alone in the corner. She had dark hair with some gray in it, and she wore torn clothes that had once been a simple jumpsuit. When the guards asked her name, she only said, "Emily." Nothing more. The guards were tall creatures called the Corvusci. They had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed a faint red in the dark. They walked through the prison area every few hours, checking on their prisoners. To them, humans were weak and easy to control. They had been taking humans from their ships and colonies for 300 years. It was normal business for them. Commander Vex was the leader of the guards on this ship. He was bigger than the others, with scars on his face from old battles. When he looked at Emily during her first day, he saw nothing special. Just another human. Just another piece of cargo to sell. They put Emily in a cell with 4 other humans. There was Daniel, a man in his 40s who used to fly cargo ships before he was captured. There was Maria, a young girl only 17 years old, taken from one of the human colonies on Mars. And there were 2 brothers named Marcus and James, who had worked as engineers on a mining station near Jupiter. The cell was cold and smelled bad. There was no real bed, just hard metal floors. A small light in the ceiling gave just enough glow to see each other's faces. On the first night, Daniel moved close to Emily and spoke quietly. "Listen to me carefully. If you want to survive, you keep your head down. You do what they say. You don't fight back. They won't kill you if you stay quiet and work hard." Emily nodded slowly, but she was not really listening. Her eyes moved across the walls, the ceiling, the corners of the cell. She was looking at something, studying something that the others could not see. "Are you okay?" Maria asked her. The young girl's voice was shaky. She had been crying earlier. "I am fine," Emily said softly. "I am just thinking." The days passed slowly on the ship. Every morning, the guards came and took the prisoners to a large room where they had to work. Their job was to sort through things taken from other captured ships. Broken machines, old tools, pieces of metal. The Corvusci wanted anything useful separated from the garbage. Emily worked quietly, never causing trouble, never speaking much. But she watched everything. She watched the guards, learning when they changed shifts. She watched the other prisoners, learning who was strong and who was broken. And most importantly, she watched the ship itself. There was something strange about this ship. Emily had noticed it on her very first day. The walls did not look quite right. The metal was different from normal Corvusci ships she had seen in pictures. It was older somehow. The patterns carved into some of the support beams were not Corvusci designs at all. On the 3rd day, something happened that changed everything. The guards were moving Emily and some other prisoners through a corridor she had never seen before. It was darker than the other hallways, and there were strange shapes on the walls. Emily slowed down, trying to look more closely. A guard behind her pushed her hard with his weapon. "Move faster, human," he growled. Emily stumbled forward, but in that brief moment, she had seen it. There, on one of the metal beams, was a symbol. It was small, almost hidden in the shadows. But Emily recognized it immediately. Her heart began to beat faster. That symbol was not alien. That symbol was human. She had seen that exact same symbol before, carved into ancient stones on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. She had spent 15 years of her life studying those symbols. They belonged to a civilization that existed on Earth thousands and thousands of years ago, long before recorded history. Her people called them the precursors, The precursors had built great ships and traveled among the stars when modern humans were still living in caves. Then something happened, some terrible disaster, and they disappeared. But they left things behind. Artifacts, technology, and apparently, they had left ships too. Emily's mind raced as she worked through the sorting room that day. The Eternal Silence was not a Korvathi ship. The Korvathi had found it somewhere, floating empty in space, and they had taken it. They had added their own systems, their own weapons, their own decorations. But underneath all of that, the heart of the ship was still there. Still precursor. Still human. And if the stories were true, if the research she had done for so many years was correct, then precursor ships were not just machines. They were something more. Something alive in a way that modern humans did not fully understand. They were built to serve humanity, to protect humanity, and they could be awakened by those who knew how. That night, back in the cell, Emily sat very still in her corner. The others were sleeping, tired from another long day of work. But Emily could not sleep. She was remembering that her grandmother had been a researcher too, before the Korvathi Wars began. She had found fragments of the precursor language hidden in ancient caves on Earth. She had learned some of the words, passed down through secret groups for thousands of years. And before she died, she had taught those words to Emily. "Remember these sounds," her grandmother had said. "Remember them exactly. One day, you may need them. One day, you may find what we have been looking for." Emily had thought the old woman was crazy. Precursor ships were just legends, just stories told by scientists who wanted to believe in something greater. But now, sitting in this cell, surrounded by alien captors, Emily understood. Her grandmother was not crazy. Her grandmother was right. Somewhere deep inside this ship, there was a heart that had been sleeping for thousands of years. And Emily knew the words that could wake it up. She looked at the other prisoners in her cell. Daniel, Maria, Marcus, James. They were scared and broken and had given up hope. But Emily had not given up. For the first time since her capture, she felt something other than fear. She felt purpose. She closed her eyes and began to plan. Emily spent the next several days watching and learning. She studied the guards and their patterns. She memorized which corridors led where. She counted the steps between her cell and the workroom, between the workroom and the food hall, between everywhere she was allowed to go at night. She would close her eyes and remember her training. She would whisper the old words under her breath, so quiet that no one could hear. The language of the precursors was strange and beautiful. It did not sound like any modern language. The sounds came from deep in the throat, mixed with soft clicks and long flowing notes. Maria was the first to notice that Emily was different from the other prisoners. The young girl sat down next to Emily during their short meal break one day. The food was terrible, some kind of gray paste that the Korvathi gave to all their prisoners. But it kept them alive, so they ate it without complaint. "You are not like the others," Maria said quietly. "You do not look scared. You look like you are waiting for something." Emily studied the girl for a moment. Maria was young, but her eyes were sharp. She had survived this long by being smart and paying attention. "Can you keep a secret?" Emily asked. Maria nodded. "I was a researcher before I was captured. A scientist. I studied very old things, things from before human history." "What kind of things?" Emily leaned closer and lowered her voice even more. "I studied the precursors." "Have you heard of them?" Maria's eyes grew wide. "The old stories? About humans who lived thousands of years ago and flew through space? They are not just stories. They were real. And this ship..." Emily paused, looking around to make sure no guards were nearby. "This ship is not really a Korvathi ship. They found it floating in space and took it. But it was built by the precursors. It was built by ancient humans. Maria stared at her like she was crazy, but there was also a small spark of hope in her eyes. "How do you know this?" "I have seen their symbols on the walls, hidden in the metal. The Kovathi do not know what they have. They think this is just an old ship they found and fixed up. But inside, deep inside, there is something they never touched. Something that is still waiting." That night, Emily decided to trust the others in her cell. She could not do this alone. She would need help. She gathered Daniel, Marcus, and James around her, with Maria sitting close by. Speaking in whispers, she told them everything. About the precursors. About the symbols she had found. About what she believed this ship really was. Daniel shook his head slowly. "This sounds impossible. Ancient human spaceships? A ship that is alive? These are just fairy tales." "I thought so too for many years," Emily admitted. "But I have spent my whole life studying this. I have seen the evidence with my own eyes. And now I am inside one of their ships. I can feel it." "Feel what?" Marcus asked. "The ship. It is sleeping, but it is aware in some small way. Have you never noticed how some doors open a little bit before you reach them? How the lights sometimes flicker when humans walk past?" The others exchanged looks. They had noticed these small, strange things, but they had thought it was just old equipment breaking down. "The ship recognizes us," Emily continued. "It knows we are human. It is trying to wake up, but it cannot do it alone. It needs someone to speak to it, to give it permission. And you can do this?" James asked. His voice was full of doubt, but also something else. Hope. "My grandmother taught me the old words. The precursor language. It has been passed down for thousands of years by people who remembered. I can speak to the ship. I can wake it up. Then what happens?" Daniel demanded. "Even if this crazy story is true, what happens when the ship wakes up? We are surrounded by Kovathi soldiers. We have no weapons." Emily smiled for the first time since her capture. It was a small smile, but it was real. If the old records are correct, precursor ships were built to protect humans. They were guardians. When this ship wakes up and realizes that humans are being held prisoner inside it, held prisoner by aliens who stole it, it will not be happy. The plan took 2 weeks to complete. First, they needed information. Maria turned out to be very useful for this. Before her capture, she had been trained to work with computer systems. She was not a full expert, but she knew enough. During their work shifts, she began to secretly study the Kovathi control panels, learning how their systems worked. Marcus and James were engineers. They understood machines and power systems. They spent their time figuring out the layout of the ship, mapping corridors and identifying important locations. Daniel used his experience as a pilot. He knew how ships worked, how crews operated, when guards were most tired and least careful. He tracked the patrol schedules and found the gaps, the moments when certain areas were left unguarded, and Emily prepared herself. Every night, she practiced the old words. She had to get them exactly right. One wrong sound could mean nothing happened at all. Or worse, something bad could happen. Finally, the day came. Emily had found what she needed during her mapping of the ship. There was a maintenance panel on the wall of one corridor, covered by Kovathi decorations. Behind those decorations, she had glimpsed a symbol she recognized. If she could reach that panel and speak the right words, she could cause a small disruption in the ship's power systems. During the evening meal, Emily made her move. She pretended to feel sick and asked to use the cleaning room. A bored guard walked her there, then waited outside. Inside, Emily found the maintenance access she had identified earlier. She climbed into the narrow space and crawled through the darkness until she reached the panel. It was exactly where she expected it to be. She placed her hand on the old metal. It was warm, warmer than it should have been. She could almost feel the ship breathing under her fingers. Emily closed her eyes and spoke the first words she had learned as a child. The sounds were soft and strange, flowing like water over rocks. She asked the ship to help her. She told it that its children were in danger. She begged it to listen. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered. Just for a second. Just for 4 seconds. The 4 seconds was enough. All across the ship, the cell doors glitched open. Just for 4 seconds. Then they closed again. But in those 4 seconds, Emily's friends were already moving. They slipped out of their cell and disappeared into the shadows of the ship. The escape had begun. Emily moved quickly through the dark corridors of the ship. Her heart was beating hard in her chest, but her mind was calm and focused. She had studied the maps for 2 weeks. She knew exactly where she needed to go. She found Daniel first, waiting at the meeting point they had agreed on. Then Maria appeared from behind a corner, her young face pale but determined. Marcus and James came last, both of them breathing hard from running. "The alarms have not started yet," Daniel whispered. "They do not know we are gone." "They will know soon," Emily said. "We need to move fast. Follow me and stay quiet." She led them through the ship using paths that the Kovati had forgotten existed. These were the old passages, the original corridors built by the precursors thousands of years ago. The Kovati had covered many of them with their own walls and rooms, but they had not destroyed them. They were still there, hidden in the bones of the ship. Emily found the entrance to these hidden paths by following the symbols. They were carved into the metal at regular intervals, so small that you would miss them if you were not looking. To the Kovati, they looked like random scratches or damage. But to Emily, they were a map. "How do you know where you are going?" Marcus asked as they climbed through a narrow space between walls. "The precursors left guides for their descendants," Emily explained. "They knew that one day their children would find these ships. They wanted to make sure we could navigate them, even if everything else had changed. The hidden passages were dusty and dark, but they were safe. No Kovati patrol ever came here." After what felt like hours of crawling and climbing, Emily stopped. "We are here," she said. Above them, through a metal grating in the floor, they could see a large room filled with lights and equipment. Kovati officers moved around, working at control stations. In the center of the room, Commander Vex stood watching several large screens showing different parts of the ship. "This is their command center," James said, his voice barely audible. "This is what they use as their command center," Emily corrected. But this room was built for something else. Something much more important. She pointed to a spot on the far side of the room, covered by storage boxes and Kovati equipment. "There. That is what I need to reach." "How?" Daniel asked. "There are at least 10 guards up there. I will not go up there. The access point is down here." Emily moved along the hidden passage until she found what she was looking for. A small section of wall that looked different from the rest. The metal here was older, smoother, covered with patterns that swirled like water. She began clearing away the dust and debris that had gathered over thousands of years. Underneath, she found a panel. It was beautiful, even after all this time. The patterns on it seemed to move in the dim light, shifting and flowing like living things. "This is it," Emily breathed. "This is the heart of the ship." The others gathered around her, watching with wide eyes. Maria reached out to touch the panel, but Emily stopped her. "Do not touch it yet. It will only respond to the proper words. If you touch it without speaking first, nothing will happen." "What are you going to do?" Daniel asked. Emily knelt before the panel and placed both hands on its surface. The metal was warm under her fingers, warmer than before. She could feel something beneath it, something vast and ancient and waiting. "I am going to wake it up," she said. "I am going to remind it who it belongs to." She closed her eyes and began to speak. The language of the precursors flowed from her mouth like music. It was not like normal speech. The sounds rose and fell, mixed together, created harmonies that seemed impossible for a human voice to make. Emily had practiced these words thousands of times, but speaking them here, in this place, felt different. The words had power here. They meant something. She spoke of home, of Earth, of the children who had grown and spread across the stars. She spoke of danger and fear and captivity. She spoke of hope and memory and the long years of waiting. The panel began to glow. At first, it was just a faint light, barely visible. Then it grew brighter and brighter until the whole hidden passage was filled with golden light. The patterns on the panel moved faster, spinning and dancing like flames. Above them, in the command center, the Kavathi officers stopped what they were doing. The lights in the room flickered. The screens went dark for a moment, then came back showing strange symbols that none of them recognized. Commander Vex turned around, his red eyes wide with confusion. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." But his officers had no answers. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once. It was not loud, but it filled every corner of the ship, reaching into every room, every corridor, every cell. It was a voice that had not spoken in 10,000 years. "Voice pattern recognized," the ship said. The words appeared in the minds of everyone aboard, translated into whatever language they understood. "Descendant authentication confirmed. Welcome home, daughter of Earth." Emily opened her eyes. They were glowing gold, the same color as the panel beneath her hands. She was connected to the ship now, linked to its ancient mind. She could feel everything. Every corridor, every room, every person aboard. She felt the 847 human prisoners scattered throughout the vessel, scared and confused, but suddenly aware that something had changed. She felt the 200 Kavasi crew members, their fear rising as they realized their ship was no longer obeying them, and she felt the ship itself. It was awake now. It was aware, and it was very, very angry. Emily stood up slowly. Her voice, when she spoke, carried throughout the entire vessel. "My name is Dr. Emily Park. I am a daughter of Earth, a descendant of the precursors who built this vessel 10,000 years ago. And I am here to tell you something important." In the command center above her, Commander Vex drew his weapon. But before he could fire, the floor opened beneath his feet and he fell through, landing hard in the hidden passage right in front of Emily and her companions. Emily looked down at him calmly. Her golden eyes showed no fear. "This ship belongs to humanity," she said, "and you are not welcome here anymore." The walls around them began to change. Panels slid open. Lights came on. The ship was transforming, shedding its Korvathi additions like old skin, revealing its true self underneath. The reclamation had begun. The ship remembered what it was. After 10,000 years of sleeping, after 300 years of being used by creatures who did not understand it, the vessel finally woke up. And it was not happy about what it found. All across the ship, systems came alive that the Korvathi had never known existed. Hidden doors opened in walls they thought were solid. Lights appeared in corridors they thought were dark storage spaces. Weapons that they had believed were decorations on the walls powered up with a deep humming sound that made their bones shake. Commander Vex lay on the floor in front of Emily, stunned from his fall. He looked up at her with fear in his red eyes. For 300 years, his people had thought of humans as weak creatures, good only for slavery and labor. Now he was seeing something very different. "What are you?" he whispered. "I already told you," Emily said. Her voice was calm, but her golden eyes burned bright. "I am a daughter of Earth, and you are inside my house." She reached out with her mind, connecting deeper with the ship's ancient systems. She could feel every corridor like they were her own veins. She could feel every room like they were chambers in her heart. She could feel every person aboard, human and Corvathi alike. And then she sent a message. Every human prisoner on the ship heard a voice in their mind at the same moment. It did not matter that they were scattered across dozens of cells. It did not matter that some of them were working in the cargo bays or the processing rooms. They all heard Emily's words clearly. Listen to me carefully. My name is Emily. I have awakened this ship, and it serves humanity now. The cell doors will open in 30 seconds. When they do, I need you to move. Head toward the center of the ship. Follow the lights that appear on the walls. They will guide you to safety. And if any Corvathi try to stop you, do not be afraid. The ship will protect you. The prisoners did not fully understand what was happening, but they heard the hope in Emily's voice. And after years of captivity, hope was enough. 30 seconds later, every cell door on the ship opened at once. In the command center above Emily, the remaining Corvathi officers were in chaos. Their control panels no longer responded to their commands. Their weapons would not fire. Their communication systems only played strange music that sounded like wind through ancient trees. One of the officers tried to run for the door. The door would not open for him. He pounded on it with his forearms, screaming in fear, but it stayed shut. The children of Earth are moving to safety, the ship announced in everyone's minds. Hostile occupants will be contained. Do not resist. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. The Corvathi tried to resist anyway. They were warriors, proud and strong. They had conquered many species across the galaxy. They would not be defeated by an old ship and a bunch of human slaves, but the ship had been built to protect humanity. That was its only purpose. That was the reason it existed. And after being forced to carry human prisoners in chains for 300 years, it had a lot of anger to release. Corvathi guards found themselves trapped in corridors that suddenly sealed at both ends. Those who tried to fire their weapons discovered that the ship could generate invisible walls of force that stopped their shots. Those who tried to fight hand-to-hand found mechanical arms emerging from the walls, grabbing them and holding them still. The ship was careful, though. Emily could feel it being careful. It did not want to kill the Corvathi. It wanted to contain them, to remove them from power, to take back control. But it did not want to murder. Why are you not killing them? James asked Emily. He had watched Commander Vex's crew capture his mining station. He had watched them kill his friends. He wanted revenge. Because we are not like them, Emily said softly. Her golden eyes turned to look at him with something like kindness. They treat other species as things to be used and thrown away. We do not have to be the same. We can be better. The containment took less than 1 hour. All 200 Corvathi crew members were herded gently but firmly into the cargo bays at the bottom of the ship. The ship guided them there using doors that only opened in certain directions and floors that moved like slow rivers. Any who tried to fight were simply picked up by mechanical arms and carried where they needed to go. Their weapons were taken. Their communication devices were destroyed. And then they were locked in, unable to escape, unable to call for help. Meanwhile, the human prisoners gathered in the central chamber, what had once been the Corvathi command center. There were 847 of them, men and women and children from dozens of different ships and colonies. Some had been prisoners for years. Some had been captured only weeks ago. They looked at Emily with wonder and fear and hope all mixed together. Is it true? A woman named Rebecca asked. She had been taken from a transport ship near Saturn. Is this ship really human? Really ours? It is true, Emily said. She stood at the center of the room, at the main control panel that now glowed with golden light. This ship is called the Last Light of Morning. It was built by our ancestors, the precursors, more than 10,000 years ago. They built it to guard humanity, to keep us safe among the stars. But what happened to them? Maria asked. The precursors? Where did they go? We do not know for sure. Something terrible happened, some disaster or war that destroyed their civilization. But before the end, they hid their ships. They scattered them across the galaxy. They left them sleeping, waiting for the day when their children would find them again. And the Korvathi found this one instead? Daniel said grimly. Yes, they found it floating in space about 300 years ago. They did not understand what they had. They just knew it was powerful, so they took it and used it. Emily's face hardened. They used a human ship to capture human slaves. They used our heritage against us. Marcus stepped forward. He had tears in his eyes. Can we really go home? Can this ship take us back to Earth? Emily smiled. It was the first real smile she had shown since all this began. Yes, we can go home. And we can warn them about what we have learned. Warn them about what? The Korvathi are not the only ones who found precursor ships. Many of the powerful alien empires in this galaxy built their civilizations on precursor technology they did not understand. Ships, weapons, tools, all of it human in origin. Emily looked around at the gathered survivors, her golden eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. For 300 years, other species have been treating humanity as prey, as slaves, as nothing. But we were never nothing. We were the children of the greatest civilization this galaxy has ever known. And now, finally, we have the proof. The room was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, people began to cheer. They hugged each other. They cried. They laughed. For the first time in years. They had hoped. Emily turned back to the control panel and placed her hands on its warm surface. Set course for Earth, she said to the ship. Take us home. Course set, the ship replied. Estimated arrival, 23 days. Welcome home, daughter of Earth. The last light of morning turned its great engines toward the distant glow of Sol and began to move. The journey home took 23 days, just as the ship had promised. During that time, the freed prisoners began to heal. The ship provided them with food, real food, not the gray paste the Korvathi had forced them to eat. It created comfortable sleeping areas where there had once been cold metal cells. It played soft music through the corridors at night, ancient songs that somehow felt familiar, even though no one had heard them before. Emily spent most of her time learning about the ship. Her connection to it was strong now, and through that connection, she could access memories that went back thousands of years. She saw images of the precursors, humans who looked just like modern people, but dressed in strange flowing clothes. She saw the worlds they had built, the cities that floated among the clouds, the stations that orbited stars. And she saw the end. A great darkness spreading across the galaxy. Ships falling silent one by one. Desperate efforts to hide what could be saved. They knew they were dying, Emily told the others one evening, when a group of survivors gathered to hear what she had learned. They knew they could not save themselves. So they tried to save what they could for us. For the humans who would come after. How many ships did they hide? Daniel asked. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. The memories are not complete. But they are scattered everywhere, across the whole galaxy. Some might still be sleeping. Some might have been found by other species, like this one was. But they are out there waiting for us to find them, Maria said softly. Yes, waiting for voices like ours to wake them up. The ship had other surprises too. As the days passed, it began to teach some of the survivors how to use its systems. It seemed to sense who had the right talents and guided them gently, showing them how to read the ancient displays, how to communicate with the vessel's mind. Marcus discovered that he could connect with the engineering systems. The ship showed him how its great engines worked, how it drew power from the space between stars, how it could repair itself when damaged. He walked through corridors that had been sealed for thousands of years and found workshops filled with tools that still worked perfectly. Maria found her place in the communication systems. She had always been good with computers, and the ship recognized this talent. It taught her how to listen to signals from across the stars, how to translate them, how to send messages that could travel faster than light. Even Daniel, who had been the most doubtful about all of this, found a purpose. He had been a pilot, and the ship needed pilots. It showed him how to guide its massive form through space, how to navigate by reading the patterns in starlight, how to feel the currents of gravity that flowed between galaxies. But it was Emily who had the strongest bond with the vessel. She was its voice, its guide, its captain. When she walked through the corridors, lights came on ahead of her. When she touched the walls, she could feel the ship's pleasure at being whole again. On the 22nd day, the last light of morning entered the solar system that humans called home. Almost immediately, alarms began to sound on human defense stations throughout the system. A Kovathi warship had appeared from nowhere, heading straight for Earth. Ships launched to intercept it. Weapons powered up. "They think we are enemies," Daniel said, watching the approaching fleet on the display. "We need to tell them who we are," Emily said. "Open communications to all human frequencies." The ship did as she asked, and Emily spoke. "This is Dr. Emily Park, aboard the vessel Last Light of Morning. I am a human citizen. I was captured by the Kovathi 3 years ago and reported dead. But I am alive. I am here, and I am bringing home 847 human survivors from Kovathi slave ships." There was a long silence on all frequencies. Then a single voice responded. "This is Admiral Thomas Bradley of Earth Defense Command. Dr. Park, we have no record of a vessel called Last Light of Morning. Our sensors show a Kovathi warship configuration. Please explain." "Admiral, this ship was captured by the Kovathi 300 years ago. But it was not built by them. It was built by humans, by an ancient civilization called the Precursors. I have awakened it and reclaimed it for humanity. The Kovathi crew are currently locked in the cargo bays as prisoners." Another long silence. "Dr. Park, that is a very unusual story." "I know, Admiral, but I have proof. I have memories from the ship itself. I have technology that has not been seen for 10,000 years. And I have 847 people aboard who can tell you about the Kovathi slave operations that humanity did not even know existed." Emily paused. "Please, let us come home. We have been prisoners for so long. We just want to come home." The defense fleet held position as the last light of morning approached Earth. They did not fire, but they did not stand down either. It took another 6 hours of communications, of sharing data, of proving who she was, before Admiral Bradley finally gave permission for the ship to enter orbit, when Emily stepped off the ship for the first time. Onto a shuttle platform in Earth orbit, she was met by dozens of military officials, scientists, and government representatives. They looked at her with suspicion and wonder and fear. Admiral Bradley was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He looked at Emily for a long moment before speaking. "Dr. Park, my people tell me that your ship is using technology we cannot identify. Technology that appears to be older than human civilization itself." "That is correct, Admiral. They tell me that the ship responded to your voice, that it recognized you somehow." "Also correct. How is this possible?" Emily looked out the window at the last light of morning, floating in orbit like a great dark whale. Even from here, she could feel its presence in her mind, watching over her, waiting for her. "Humanity is older than we knew," she said. "Much older, and much more powerful." Our ancestors built ships like this one to protect us. They scattered them across the galaxy before they died, hoping their children would find them someday. She turned back to face the Admiral. There are more ships out there. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They are waiting for us to find them and wake them up. And if we do, then the galaxy will learn something that they have forgotten. For 300 years, alien empires have treated humanity as prey. They have captured us, enslaved us, killed us. They thought we were weak. Emily's eyes began to glow faintly gold as her connection to the ship strengthened. We were never weak, she said. We were just sleeping. But now we are waking up. And we are going to find every ship our ancestors left for us. We are going to reclaim our heritage. And any species that tries to harm humanity again will learn why the precursors were feared across the stars. The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to smile. Dr. Park, he said, I think you and I need to have a very long conversation. Behind her, through the window, the last light of morning hummed with ancient power. It could feel its siblings out there in the darkness, sleeping, waiting, dreaming of the children who would come to wake them. The return had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.